Layers are a great way to organize complex scenes. They allow you to segment a scene as well as to hide and show parts of the scene very quickly. So here we have our simple suburban scene here, and we can create some layers for this. So let's say we only really wanted to work with, say, the car and some of the background information. We really don't need to be selecting that. Well, we can put that on a separate layer so that way we don't have to accidentally select it or work with it. So let's go ahead and just click on the ground plane here. So I've got my object called ground. And if we go into the channel box, down towards the bottom here, we have a layers panel. Now this layers panel has three tabs. One is display, one is render. So we actually can render in layers. We're not going to get to that. And the other one is animation layers. So we can actually layer animation. We're concerned with display layers right now. So we're going to make sure that that tab is active. And then under layers, I'm going to go create layer from selected. And we have two options here. One is create empty layer, pretty self-explanatory. And the other one is create layer from selected. So what this will do is create a layer and then add in whatever objects we have selected. So now I've got this layer. It's called layer 1, and it has a couple of buttons here. So I'm going to double click on the name. And you'll see that, well, we can change the name to whatever we want. Well, let's just call this ground layer and hit save. So now I know that this is the ground layer. So we've got a couple of buttons here. This one here toggles visibility on and off. So I can make everything in that layer visible or invisible. Now, right now I only have one object in there, but I can toggle that on or off. So that's a great way to turn off parts of the scene that you may not want to work with. Now, another thing we have is we have this button here on the right. This goes through three modes. When there's nothing there, the object is selectable. So I can click on or off the object to select it. If I put it on T, it's on what's called a template mode. And what that does is it simply grays it out so we can see the wireframe of the object, but we're not seeing the actual textures or anything on the object. Now, the third one is called reference mode, and that makes the object look like it's totally in the scene, but it also makes it so we can't select it. So I can see the object, but if I'm selecting, it doesn't get included in that set. So if I turn that off, I can select, click over to R, and now I can't. So it's a great way to have objects like this, such as ground planes or background images that you can see but not select. Now we can create layers as well by selecting multiple objects. So if I wanted to, I could select some of these trees here. And again, do the same thing. Layers, create layer from selected. Now if I double click on this, again, I could call this something descriptive such as tree layer and hit save. Now again, same thing. I can turn visibility on or off. I can template them, I can reference them, or I can make them accessible. Now I can also add or subtract things from a layer. So if I want to, I can select, say, these trees, right-click over this, and go Add Selected Objects. I can select all of this and also do Add Selected Objects. So now I've got all of this in my scene. But let's say I don't want the house. Let's say I want the house separate. So I can select the house and right-click and go Remove Selected Objects. So now that house is not part of my layer. So I've got a couple of layers here, one for the trees, one for the ground. So we can use this to create a system of layers that allow me to organize my scene so I can see things, select certain parts of the scene, but not other parts. And this can be very useful as you start working with more and more complex scenes.